Hello and welcome to the On the Slab Horror Show, the show that we bring to you each and every Friday night. King, why Friday night?
Friday night is horror night. Absolutely.
Um, and
Woo.
if you don't know and you're tuning in for the first time, Friday night is a night back in the early 90s and onwards that in Ireland they played a horror movie after the watershed. So we said, what better time to put it out than to where we spent most Friday nights growing up.
We
And we
did
put it out
anyway.
in and around the time of the watershed, which is actually 9 o'clock, but 10 o'clock over here it was. But sure, look, King, welcome back.
Thank you very much. I'm absolutely dying, but that's okay because we have a great show today. That's what I think. So.
I mean, you don't look any different, so.
No, but you can hear it in my voice. I was actually jamming with Kerry last night. My daughter is 15, and she had her first jam with my cover band last night. She played bass, and I don't know, Kate, if you're aware of Slayer, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
so like my daughter's name is Kerry King, and he's the guitarist from Slayer, and
Nice.
we're doing a Slayer cover band, and it was our first jam last night, and it blew my voice. So anyway, that's me.
I've absolutely no idea. That just went straight over my head. I know I've heard
Well,
it a million times, but
yeah, but the fact that my daughter played in her first jam with me last night was class, you know. So this voice loss was worth it. So that's what I'm saying. Anyway, enough about me.
as you can tell, the other person in this group is not the Dynamo, nor is it Tombstone. It is actress Kate Kiddo, who's joining us tonight from the likes of Terror Trips and whatnot, which we've had multiple guests from
On location.
on location, or as it was known, yeah. How are you, Kate?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. Finally, I made it over to Ireland. That's crazy.
And have you
We'll teleport you over.
You've never been to Ireland, I presume, have you not?
No, I have been to like countries near Ireland-ish,
Right.
but not to Ireland,
Do
unfortunately.
you have any European descendants by any chance?
Not exactly European, but I guess it's a large country
Russia.
in that area. Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's okay. Sorry.
Isn't
Um,
Russia
Terror
in
Trips might have
part
tipped
of
you
Europe?
off.
yes.
Some
No.
parts of Russia not in Europe.
Some parts are, but yeah, I don't know. But anyway,
They also play in the European qualifiers for the World Cup and stuff. But
and they're
sure, look.
also in the Eurovision Song Contest. I don't know if you're
Right.
familiar
So
with
are,
that.
so are Australia, but sure, look.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Do you? Australia in the Eurovision Song Contest. Anyway, we're not talking about Eurovision contest. We're talking about horror movies. That's why we're here. Again, thank you very much for coming on, Kate. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us, and
Thank you.
it'll be great to have a quick chat about all things horror and what you like and all this kind of stuff. So,
Your
as
career as well.
yeah, so as we were saying off camera, like we initially discovered it through On Location. So I thought you played a real badass on that film. I thought that was brilliant, Alexandra. Yeah, and
That's the one.
the one thing I wanted to ask is, I presume you did all those like martial arts moves yourself, yeah?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I really petitioned for a stunt double because I knew that there was no way that I could. Like, I'm so stiff and not flexible. I'm just like my dad. Even though my dad did martial arts pretty well and pretty professionally, like but I am so bad that I probably could not kick a like toddler in the face. Like that's how high I can go with my legs. So for the months prior to shooting, I had to do a lot of learning how to do that and stretching and whatnot. And then we got postponed for COVID because that's when COVID hit, like right when we were supposed to be shooting. We were supposed to do April 2020.
Right.
And that's exactly when it all started.
Yeah.
And I was so bummed out, but at the same time, like, okay, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Like, this is horrible. Like, oh wait, it's gonna give you a few more months to stretch. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna think about the good things. So finally, that happened, and it looks okay. It might not look exactly like I fell on my ass a few times during the takes, but it certainly did happen. I ate some dust on that set.
Fair play to you. That's all I say. If you're doing your own stuff like that, fair play, you know.
look at the likes of Jackie Chan. They miss loads of stunts as well, so I wouldn't worry too much about falling over.
And don't worry,
At least
he's not
didn't break anything.
he's not comparing you to Jackie Chan either. Don't worry.
I'm like, I was thinking about that. I'm like, I still have ways to go to Jackie Chan,
Yeah.
but thank you.
No, but like everyone, like any kind of stunts like that, you're gonna see people falling over. You never get it right the first time. Like we spoke to Michael Bailey Smith a couple of months ago, and he was telling us how Van Damme broke his nose in Hell by missing a kick.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
these things happen, and Van Damme was one of the best martial artists, movie makers of all time.
Well, see, that's scary, especially when you're with a partner. You don't want to break their nose.
No.
Your nose is fine, but if you fall on your own nose. But like, and that's what was a little bit intimidating to me working with Cheney, even though he's an awesome scene partner. But I was just so worried that I would lose control of what I was doing, and when I kick him first, he doubles over, and I was like, I'm so afraid of kicking him right in the face. So we had to practice that a few times. But
Fair play to you. I love the way your man goes, no, watch this. And then you just proceed to kick his ass. That's brilliant.
He's like, watch this. And we're just standing there for like 5 minutes, like doing the Mortal Kombat. Pick your fight.
That's a good reference. I like that reference.
So Kate,
I can't think of anything else when I watch that. I'm like, look at me doing the Mortal Kombat.
So you tell us a little bit about your career in movies and cinema, and what got you into wanting to be an actress or whatever. Give us a bit of history behind the kiddo.
Well, okay. I'll try to make it as brief as I can. I started with the musical theater when I was like 6, and a few years later I had to stop. And the reason why that started is because I loved going to the theater when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was just, it was magical time for me. And I was mostly fascinated by what was happening behind the curtain, right? Because the public is really not privileged to that information. I was like, how come I don't get to see what's going on? I want to see what's going on. And my mom took me to our city's musical theater, and I auditioned and got in, and I was so happy. It was the best thing, the best first win of my life, I guess. And then a couple years later I had to stop because stereotypically, especially back in my day, the notion was that academics rule the world, right?
Yeah.
And having your child focus on arts is basically setting them up for failure. And my mom, being young too, and she wanted the best for me, so she was like, all right, you have to stop. We're gonna focus on your school and do that. So I mean, being a kid, that's what you do, and you get the idea that that's not real life stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to focus on getting your education, stuff like that. So I do have 2 business degrees. I just didn't do anything. So the way that I transitioned into film was because after I got my degrees, I was looking for a job. It was really, really tough, and I was really depressed and really sad and crying, and I'm like, I can't find a job. They're like, I'm a failure. This is horrible. And then I'm like, what if I get a job? And then I just start bawling because I realized that if I do get a job, it's almost as bad as not being able to find one because I hate it.
Yeah.
Like I just pictured it and I hated it. And I was like, oh my God, this is awful. And so I remember at about 4-5 o'clock in the morning when I was done crying, I was like, okay, so what if there was no obstacles? Like what would you be doing? Because you have no idea. And I'm like, acting, obviously acting. And that's pretty much how I was able to go to sleep that night. I was like, acting, we're going to work on acting tomorrow morning. So I got into a couple of, you start working on local shorts and local local films, and then you kind of build yourself up, because I started with the crew work and working for free because I didn't know anything about the film side of things. I knew something about theater, but not film. So that's kind of how I went in there and learned a little bit about making movies and transitioned into acting. And Jeff was actually how I took a first real step towards acting in movies, was because I worked with somebody doing crew on a Hallmark movie.
Right.
And now my dear friend David J, he was wrangling background, and months later he was like, hey, my buddy is shooting a movie in Ohio, you want to audition for it? So that was my first audition, and I got it. And that's how you guys know me now.
Woohoo! Love it.
I mean, it's a good run to be thinking. I suppose being an actor, you have to know somebody really, don't you, to get started? You make friends with somebody who knows somebody that can help.
Usually.
Or you're just really lucky.
It's a very social business, obviously. It's all about, well, it's not all about whom you know and whom you make friends with, but I mean, it does matter a lot. But and a lot of people don't realize that. That's why it looks so unapproachable. Like the business looks so unapproachable to people who've never done it.
Yeah, it looks like a closed shop type thing, Yeah. It's very like just to kind of give you an idea, it's very like the music industry as well. In terms of now I'm on a very small level in terms of the music industry, but like that, even at that level, you still have to kind of know someone to get to this particular level, to move to this gig, or to so it's kind of similar to what you do in that sense,
Right.
Yeah, so I can understand where you're coming from. So I presume you've always been interested in horror movies, yeah?
Yes, or at least I like to think that I'm a huge horror fan, because I enjoy horror movies. But then when I start talking to friends of mine who are diehard movie fans, I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen a movie in my life. I know nothing. I know nothing, and I haven't seen anything. But in part, it's kind of also true, because usually if I find something I like, I'll just go and rewatch it 10 times.
That's I'm just saying. Yeah.
So a lot of times gets, I don't want to say wasted, but kind of wasted not exploring new things, and I kind of regret that. But I'm trying to change that this year.
We actually, the other show that we were saying off screen in Retrotainment Recast, we have a thing that we do every 2022 movie we watch, we'd rank it. So I'd always have been the same way. I'd have always just, if I'm looking for something, I'd go back and watch something I know rather than watching something new. But with this new list, I'm determined to make a whole high number of it. So I found myself watching new movies all the time now, and it's great.
Good. Good.
But you do discover some really good ones that come out now. That most of them can be pretty poor, but it's getting to see something new. It's not as much not even wasting, watching something for an hour and a half, 2 hours that you've seen 40 times, when you can sit and watch something new for an hour and a half and be like, well, I know I'm not going to watch that again, or that was awesome.
Yeah.
That kind of way.
Hey,
lockdown was great for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The which?
Pardon?
What was I missed what you said there.
Oh, well, I will, I'll see a movie poster when I'm scrolling, and like, oh, that would be great to watch. Like, I really want to watch that. And I will put it off to the perfect moment to watch it. I'm like, oh no, I'll watch it in October, or and then October rolls over and I'm just saving that movie, and I never watch it, and I save it till next year. And then my friends are finally like, what the hell are you doing? Just watch the movie. We all want to talk about the movie. Just watch it.
That's like us.
Yeah.
What was your earliest memory of what film, horror film was your first film? Can you remember which one got you into the
Yes.
genre?
Yes, I do remember, and it's a sweet story, and I've told it before. My mom had a longtime boyfriend when I was about that same age that I started acting, like 6, and his mother also had a granddaughter, and she was like a year or two younger than me. And so on weekends, sometimes he'd take me over there so we could play. And she had this old apartment, old creaky wooden floors and the little desk lamp and stuff. And she would sit there, and it's nice and quiet. It's like Saturday night. And she would scan the TV guide for horror.
Oh.
And that's a Russian grandma, okay? If you know anything about us as a species, we are very conservative for the most part. But so I call her Grandma 2.0 because of like how cool she was. And she was fantastic. She would every time, and she would introduce both of us, even though we were so young. I was 6 and she was like 4.5.
Yeah.
To her, she would sit us down on the floor and we would watch it on like a little TV. She would find like old ghost story books for us to read, like vintage, like falling apart vintage. And she was the person who like told us about Halloween, because nobody celebrates Halloween back then. Well, now maybe, but not, back then.
No.
But and it's crazy to find a person from like 2 generations before that, you know, to be into it. But she's the one who introduced me, and I could never go back. And that first movie was The Bride of Chucky.
Ah, brilliant.
What's that, 1990? Would have been, is that Bride of Chucky's 1990, isn't it?
Yeah, somewhere in there, yeah.
So I hope you weren't getting inspiration from The Bride of Chucky, were you?
Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah. I mean the actual doll. I mean the doll.
Yeah, the doll.
Oh, right.
That's just
sorry, it was 1998. Bride of Chucky West.
So I guess I watched it as it came out.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So would you have been watching that? And this is gonna sound stupid, but I think up these questions on the go. Would you have been watching that with Russian, subtitles or
dubbing?
Or overdubbing?
We had the everything was dubbed. Yeah, everything was dubbed. Or we and I can't remember what that particular one was, because usually on TV you'll see movies that are higher quality and the translation is higher quality. But most of the time what we got on VHS was like simultaneous translation. So like you hear the English track and you would hear the Russian track, which would weird a lot of people out these days. And like, what is that? I can't pay attention. But for us, we were so used to it, and was never really a problem.
Yeah. What was I going to say to you there? What's your favorite genre of horror?
Yes. Even though my first and very sentimental movie was The Bride of Chucky, I am more into supernatural horror.
Cool. I
love, ghosts, hauntings, and possession and stuff like that. So the supernatural, that stuff's for me.
You must have been in heaven then the last 10 years or so when they were all coming out. The likes of Paranormal Activity and stuff, they all came one after another.
Oh yeah,
it's like horror runs in a cycle, isn't it? And then that was it.
Yeah. I think whenever Paranormal Activity came out, it was a groundbreaking movie, for
2010. That was.
Yeah. I not long ago I only discovered Hereditary, and I love that film. I absolutely love it, and I've only said this. I said this before to the lads. I've only ever watched it once because I enjoyed it so much. I want to like what you were saying, Aaron. I want to wait for the perfect moment to rewatch it because there's so much in it.
It's a long movie too.
Yeah. I don't mind the length of one once it's engrossing.
I couldn't think of anything worse than rewatching that. I hated it.
Is
Every
it
minute of it.
is it because of the
No,
no?
it's
I
one
love
of those
that.
movies I just couldn't get into. Same
Really?
as Midsummer, I just couldn't get into them.
Okay.
Now, then
Yeah.
again, I did say I was the same with The Witch. Obviously all A24 stuff, but having gone back, I went back and rewatched The Witch when I actually sat down, turned the phone off, and watched it properly. And I'm quite a big fan of it now,
Yeah, it's
but
brilliant.
I can't bring myself to watch the other two. I'm just like, nah.
That's what I should do with The Witch, because I also watched it like just one eye on the TV.
Yeah.
And I didn't really get into it. I was like, this is boring. And I just didn't. I just walked away. But I should probably
That's
give
exactly
it
what I had. That's exactly how I was. I had people knock to the door and stuff, and I was like, yeah, okay, grand. I just couldn't get into it, but I actually sat there, watched it, turned the phone off, watched it in the dark.
Yeah.
Now, the dark didn't have anything to do with it really, but the movie was brilliantly designed.
Brilliantly put together. I love that film.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it, and like that, I love atmosphere in films.
cool.
For me, atmosphere is even more kind of fear-inducing than a monster jumping out at you, or
Yeah.
fear of the unknown, or fear of what's going on in here that can make it even worse.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And you know what, you were talking about atmosphere, and it made me think. I really hope you enjoy the next one we got coming out. It's called Dark Circles.
Cool.
I don't know if you saw it on IMDb when you were looking stuff up.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We did, yeah.
that one is a very atmospheric
Cool.
movie too. So
And
we'll
when is that coming out? Kate?
It's in the last stages of post-production right now.
Brilliant.
So hopefully a few months and we'll
Lovely.
have it
It
out.
has 23 on IMDb, so I'm imagining it's going to be into next year.
Right. Yeah. But next year is only a few months away, so
that's true.
That's the best way of looking at it. When people say next year, yeah, it's only 3.5 months away, 2.5 months away.
Yeah, so that sounds about right. That sounds about accurate.
I mean, it's like, even when we're talking about atmosphere there, the atmosphere that came from terror trips, once they get into Russia or into Poland, becomes absolutely horrible. Like, you can tell it's like proper tense, and they're not afraid. They're afraid to say anything. Obviously, haven't met your character,
right?
And then you kind of give out to them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I hated that monologue. I hated it.
I didn't mind that. I thought it was quite good.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I just hated filming it because, well, first of all, since we were filming during COVID, I think if you watch it again, you can see that all of us are kind of standing 6 feet apart from each other.
You can notice that, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it was very bright. It was hot, and I just had like the sun just right in my face. And not only that, but I came in. There are 2 moments in the movie where I have a very like wordy or long scene, and that was one of them. And that was preparing. It's a long monologue, and the night before when I was leaving set, I was like, all right, tomorrow, scene 69, gonna prepare. So I prepared for a lengthy monologue, and then I come to set, and Jeff was like, all right, you ready? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. 69. And he was like, what? Like, scene 69. He was like, 29, Kate.
Oh, 29. Jesus.
I'm like, oh my God, I did not. And this is the lengthier one. This is and I'm like, shit. Well, luckily, I mean, I knew this script by heart, and this is the scene that I auditioned with. So naturally, I do have some muscle memory of it too. So I'm like, crap, this is the wordier one. I can't believe it. And I have no idea how I made that mistake. But anyways, so I'm kind of shaky on the on the monologue. The sun is in my face. The guys are setting up the flags, the courtesy flags all above us, and they're covering everybody but me.
Oh.
Like the sun is just right in between them, and it's like on my face, and I'm like, I'm trying to battle the squint, and I'm just like, you damn kids. I can't see your faces, but if I did, and I'm just like, and I'm pausing, and then I'm pausing for dramatic effect, but Jeff thinks I don't know the words, and Jeff is like reading the line to me. I'm like, I got it. I know it. Like, I'm acting. So but that was only because I was just like, there's so many stimulants like right around me. But anyways, we got through it, and I was just like, oh, this is all wrong. But hopefully, it made sense. It worked. It was fine. But I hated the time doing it, because I felt so bad that I made that mistake, and that's what spiraled everything like out of control for me.
Where was it? How far away was that where you filmed it? I can't remember. I remember asking Jeff where it was. But
it was in the tri-state area, the Ohio, Kentucky. So it was in Indiana. So
would that be far from? Like, would have been much travel from where you live to there?
You mean from where I lived, like at home, or from the cast house where we stayed?
Well, say from home.
From home, I lived in North Carolina then, so it was 9 hours.
Yep, you can drive from the top of Ireland to the bottom of Ireland in 6, maybe 7.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's how small we really are.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Yeah. So I did take that drive and loved it. It was great. So I took the drive to Ohio.
It's a spin and a half, all right. Put the miles on the car that way.
Yeah.
Kate, we were talking off camera about how awesome your kind of surroundings look, even behind you. It looks fantastic. And do you have any cool traditions for Halloween, since we are in the month of October?
Cool traditions for Halloween. I mean, of course I decorate, and I start in August because I can't contain it for too long. And I just recently got all the candy finally, and I was so upset about Fun Dip. Do you guys get Fun Dip?
We do not.
What is Fun Dip?
Okay.
I'm intrigued as to what it is, though.
Okay, well, I should have processed. Anyway, do you know Pop Rocks? Do you have Pop Rocks?
I know Pop Rocks. It's like, is that like a popping candy, is it? Or?
Right, it's a little packet, and sometimes there's candy in it, and you dip it, and you... So when I look at Fun Dip, that's what I always think, and then I buy it, and then I open it up and eat it, and I instantly get hit with disappointment. Because it's just sugary powder with a chalky stick.
Yeah.
Stick.
I know what it's a dip dab.
Okay. But
that's what we'd call it. Sometimes like over here it comes with a lollipop and stuff.
Right. Well, that one doesn't have like a proper lollipop. It just has a chalky stick of candy.
Yeah. Right.
And it's just gross. And I hate it. And I was like, oh my God, I've never been so pissed off at a piece of candy in my life. I'm about to tweet the hell out of it. I didn't do it. But, I always got super disappointed by Fun Dip. Like, I've done this before. Why do I keep doing this? I'm thinking it's Pop Rocks. I'm like, what is fun about you, Fun Dip?
We will send you a reminder closer to Halloween to get
Don't get Fun Dip.
Don't get Fun Dip.
I quite like those dip dabs, to be fair, with the chalky stick. Usually over here you get one with 3 flavors in it.
Yeah. Well, this one has 2. Yeah, but I'm glad that somebody likes them, because I was like, oh my God, kids are gonna throw eggs at my house.
If you don't want them, you can gladly send them to me. I'll eat them.
Yes, perfect.
Hey, do the kids do that? Do the kids still do that over there? Throw eggs at houses, really, if they don't get their trick or treats. Like, wow, kids just don't do that.
If I lived over there, kids would be getting volleyed in the face. Throw eggs at my house.
And it's great.
Yeah.
It's great here now because the kids don't even bother. Like they just if I don't answer the door, they just go, "Oh, there's no one in." Like even though like my house is lit up like a
You see
fucking
Carl sitting there watching the telly going, not opening the door.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've done that before. One year actually, I had the blind open and I was just sitting in the window, and kids were
Oh
like coming up,
no.
trick or treat, and I was just like, no, and they were like, they just flew out the door. They were with their parents, and their parents were like, oh my god, like I did it once, 1 year, that's all.
Oh no. Well, you tried it. You tried it out. So, are you gonna do the same thing this year?
I am actually playing a gig on Halloween night. So I'm looking forward to that because I used to dress up as a clown over the years, and I have a whole menagerie of clown tricks and treats and outfits, and I had retired my clown persona for years, and I'm bringing it back out for that gig. So
You're Fistbo, the clown from Modern Family.
is both. Fuck off you.
But as far as proper like Halloween traditions, I'm sure I will think of something once we're done. Like that's how it always happens. But no, it's just usually the movies. And okay, I do have one tradition. You know that Halloween movie marathon for me starts with Addams Family.
Nice.
Even though it's a kid movie, I'm like, I can't. My kickoff is always with the Addams Family.
Cool.
So, like,
The first one.
I start with the first one, but this year I just really wanted to watch the second one, so I did.
Values. Values is awesome. I actually prefer Values than the first one.
Me too. Yeah. I was trying to watch some Irish films before I got on. I tried watching Gorgo, right? Gorgo, not Grago. Gorgo.
Gorgo. That's a horror, isn't it?
Yeah, Damien's gonna crucify me for saying it wrong.
There's a great one. What was the one? The Boys from County Hell is a really good.
Yeah.
It's a horror comedy type thing, but it's really good. So if you can get your hands on that, check that out. The Boys from County Hell.
There's a couple actually. Boys from County Hell was one. Stitches is another one. It's about a clown.
Okay.
I don't know whether you know the Australian comedian Ross Noble.
He's not Australian. He's English.
Well, he calls himself Australian now because he lives in Australia.
Yeah.
Well, he's English. He plays a clown in that. That's a very good Irish one. And then there's one actually in the States. If you have Amazon Prime, which I'm thinking you might do, it's called Beyond the Woods. It's an Irish made one by a friend of the show who was on the show on Monday night, giving us his picks. Sean Bradnock directed it.
Oh, cool.
It's a very good slasher monster creature feature movie. So check that one out.
Okay. I'll have an Irish marathon.
Yeah, do yeah.
And then let us know.
The best thing to do, actually, sorry for cutting across you, Greg, is not focus on the horror films from Ireland. Focus on the actual real like ghost stories from Ireland, because there's some scary shit in this country, like, you know, for such a small country.
A good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea.
If you go back through the back catalogue that we have, I think it's episode 3, the two lads, before I joined, the two lads done the two most haunted places in Ireland. They done the background stories to that.
I'll send you the link for that. I'll send you on the link for that, just if it's there for you if you want, like, you know. But I mean,
we're not exactly renowned for Irish horror.
No, but
I mean, you could watch Shrooms, but that's terrible.
Don't. But it's very.
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's not.
Oh.
I saw it. Wow, I forgot about that movie.
Yeah,
I think I liked it.
So did everybody.
I think I liked it when I watched it. That was like 10, 15, probably 15 years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago.
The talking cow.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd be more renowned for our haunted areas rather than our films, you know. And we don't seem to capitalize on that very much. And I think more Irish directors and writers should do that, you know. But sure,
Yeah.
here we are, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, I would assume it would have something to do with like Catholicism for the most part, wouldn't it?
Mm. Well, yeah,
Somewhere.
a lot of haunted places are around religious kind of buildings and entities and all that. Yeah, so I suppose you could say Catholicism, yeah.
Paganism
Yeah.
and everything
Well,
else
what
to
I'm
go with
saying
it.
is like the reason why people don't capitalize on it, maybe because people in charge are, maybe mostly
I get you.
conservative,
Yeah.
religious and stuff like that.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to get support for. Believe it or not, it's hard to get support for arts in general. If you're not, if you're not in the mainstream, you know.
Right.
So yeah, like, and that goes,
Which is a shame.
yeah, it goes from music to cinema to anything like that, anything artistic. It's not, if you're not out there in the mainstream, then they don't want to know. So.
Right.
Which is a shame. Actually, there's another Irish one. It's called "You're Not My Mother," which is a very, very good one.
Okay, sounds
It's a
cool.
good one.
I think that's on Prime as well.
It is on Prime, yeah. So.
There are a couple of the Irish ones that you could check out. So, like, you're obviously based in the States now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would there be any of those local or any areas beside you where big horror films were made?
Well, I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina for a long time, and that's a movie town. They used to shoot a lot of movies there. Period. I'm pretty sure that the third Conjuring was shot around there.
Okay.
The Devil Made Me Do It.
Yeah. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, and I remember I was getting like casting alerts for it and stuff, but I was gonna do it, but it was I was doing something else at the time, so I couldn't even like attempt it. Don't remember why, but yeah.
It wasn't overly well received anyway. Number 3 wasn't, unfortunately. I quite enjoyed it.
The third one?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
You could just the standard was just a little bit different because of obviously the change of director and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell, but it wasn't overly well received in terms of the franchise. And I was like, it was okay. What more do you want?
Right. It was probably the like weakest one out of the 3, but I still liked it.
Yeah.
I think I watched it on. I don't remember when it came out, but I was like, oh, this is a perfect Valentine's Day
Love it.
horror movie, because it was all about love, and there's like these love parallels, like these 2 young people, like there's a love, and there's Ed and Lorraine Warren, of course, and they're doing their own love thing. I'm like, oh, this is a Valentine's movie.
Couples who watch horror together stay together.
That's true. That's true.
I'm probably gonna be single at some stage soon then. Sorry, Zoe.
So
no.
I think we're gonna wind down now, because we could actually talk all day actually, but
me too.
I know, and it's been absolutely awesome having you on the show, and we really, really appreciate having you on the show. So before you go, I'm gonna ask you a strange question, because the question that I'm gonna ask you is something I don't like, okay? And what I mean by that is remakes, okay?
Remakes, okay.
I can't stand remakes, but because you're an actor, if you were given any film to remake and have your pick of the cast to play, what would you do? I know that's putting you on the spot a little bit, but sure.
Oh, nuts. Okay. It would probably be something like
You broke her.
Wow, that's a really tough question.
Sorry, I should have actually said that to you beforehand. I just, as I said, it popped into my head.
This is interesting. No, this is great. This is great. I would love to remake. It's so bad. You're so bad.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, I think Black Christmas was awesome, and it has a whole bunch of remakes.
Yeah.
None of them
Um,
very good either.
None of them very good. I think I would love something like that, but like very well made. And
Yeah.
also, I'd love to. Well, here's another thing. You say you hate remakes, and um, but and I used to as well. Like I used to be like, how dare they even think that they can, do this stuff. But then a friend of mine was like, what do you care? Like, you already have the original version. What's your problem?
Yeah.
And I thought about that. I was like, yeah,
I
that's
suppose,
true.
yeah.
That's true. And it doesn't matter how many remakes it gets, like I still have the original version. But at the same time, like I'm appalled at somebody's audacity, right? Like this masterpiece, how dare you? But it makes me think about like theater, for example. I mean, we have Macbeth, and Macbeth has been done like billions of times all
Yeah.
around the world because people, like actors and directors, they want to play it. They want to play that thing. So in the movies, like it's just the nature of our media that it gets, not scrutinized, but it receives, that kind of reaction from people. It's only because that's our media, because it has to come out and it has to have a release, and it's it's going to go into theaters or on streaming platforms, and of course it's going to cause reaction. But nobody bats an eye at theater. I mean, oh, you're going to do Macbeth?
Yeah.
Like nobody does that, right? So I started looking at it a little bit, I started being a little bit more relaxed about it, and not feel the hurt anymore. But I think Black Christmas, since I watched it not so long ago, it was only like a couple years since I've watched Black Christmas. I thought it was very much ahead of its time, and it was a brilliant cast, mostly women. It was awesome, and I think it would just be very fun to play. And also, when I think about it, I'm like, well, that's a pretty tough performance to top or to equal. So that's always a challenge, and that's why I think about Black Christmas. I'm like, I'd love to do that.
Awesome.
Or if I could just travel back in time and be part of the
in
cast, because Margot Kidder, I mean, come on.
Yeah, she's awesome.
It's fantastic,
like,
and gorgeous.
The 03 remake was the first time I seen that movie. I didn't realize at that stage, I was only 13 when that came out. I didn't realize it was an older movie. And I watched it and I was like, this is okay. Then I found the original and I was like, no, it's not okay.
Yeah.
It is not okay. Albeit the actual killer in the 03 one wasn't bad. I think everything else that went with it was just poor.
Okay.
No, like it is what it is. But it's the whole remake thing is kind of big at the minute, obviously, with the Hellraiser reboot coming out. You had Rob Zombie's atrocious effort at the Monsters.
Yeah, I heard about that. I still have not seen either one.
Don't.
I mean, I'd watch the Monsters quicker than I'd watch Hocus Pocus 2. That's how bad that was. But the Monsters was atrocious.
The Hocus Pocus 2 was worse than the Monster.
Yeah, in my opinion. Now my other half loved it, and she watched it again with the kids today.
Okay.
But no, I absolutely hated it. I hated it.
Interesting. Yeah, that's always subjective, obviously. And with horror movies, I mean, what other genre has either more devoted or unforgiving at the same time public?
Yeah. And that's why we all love it so much, because it can be polarizing at times. And
very much.
Yeah. And that's the great thing.
It's very hard to become a classic really outside of horror and be remade. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't turn around and like, oh, I'm going to remake Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Do you know what I mean? It's a 1980s action movie. It's not going to work now. Right?
Right.
But you turn around and go, I'm going to remake Nightmare on Elm Street, because you can reimagine the story. They tried it, failed miserably.
Didn't work.
But like, I'd love to see that being remade now again, just better. But Michael Bay and stuff like that. That 2010 one was just horrendous.
Well, I think
Well,
your
that's
show.
what
I was just gonna say I think your show for Black Christmas would be really interesting, very cool actually.
I actually thought when you were going back that far, I was like, she's gonna come out with Texas Chainsaw now or something.
Oh,
I actually just recently watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the first time, the original. I know.
No 3-1 is better.
Shut up.
I know. But it was time. It was finally time to watch that original one, and I was like, okay, I see it. Okay, cool. But I still haven't seen the new one. Have you guys seen the new one?
Oh, it's awful.
Oh, it's terrible. It's horrendous.
Awful.
I actually thought it was going to be hard to beat for the worst movie of the year for me. It's still second. It's actually third from the bottom on my list.
Okay.
It is horrendous. And what they did to so we actually done an episode on it where I'm surprised it wasn't taken down from YouTube for being expletively curse related. But what they done with, obviously, the main character Sally. So
Okay.
they bring her back, but it's a different actress.
Okay.
And like they just pretty much pissed all over the other story, and I was like
Yeah.
I'm one of these ones. I love the original one up to the dinner scene when the granddad comes back.
Yeah.
And then I just get lost in it. I'm like, no, I don't care anymore, because he's about 400 years of age and he's dead at one stage and he comes back to life. I'm like,
Right.
why?
That's why you
I was like,
suspend
why?
belief, Greg. It's all movies. That's what it is. It's
But
subjective.
it wasn't supposed to be suspended belief, because it was supposed to be a true story.
Well, you're a fool if you believe that it was a true story.
That's what they made it out to be.
And that's what made it so popular, was because it was not real.
Yeah. No. Well, tell that to the
That's
people
crazy.
in the 70s when it came out.
No.
Are you
right.
gonna play the game? The game is coming out soon.
Yes, I am
Oh, yeah.
definitely gonna play that. Absolutely.
It's lined up and ready to go. Same as the Evil Dead game.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
Awesome.
looks great actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know the guys, the gun guys who made the game.
Cool.
So, and I remember we were having dinner and they were just like nerding out completely about the game, because they're creating every blade of grass. Like they're all around Texas and they're like taking pictures. These are like two guys, like two adult men in their like 40s, I think. They look really great. And they're like serious dudes, but then when they start showing you pictures, they're almost giddy. They're like, look at this picture of these flowers that we found in Texas.
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
brilliant.
this is gorgeous. This is awesome. And they are so diligent. They'll take a picture of every pebble that they find in that area where the movie was shot in Texas. And they will just model everything out of like just rocks, just to make it as close to the real thing as possible. And I think it's freaking fantastic.
I can't wait to play it.
I'm genuine. Go ahead, Cal.
I was just gonna say that they've come a long way since they did the Friday the 13th one.
That wasn't bad, actually. I was only playing that the other
It
day.
wasn't bad, like, but this seems like it's head and shoulders above that,
Like,
oh yeah, well, I mean, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, it's been 5-6 years since Friday the 13th came out. But I'm loving the fact that they're going back to the 80s horror movies and making games for it. Obviously, we have Evil Dead coming out. You've got Texas Chainsaw, which was obviously late 70s. You've got Killer Clowns from Outer Space that's coming out as a game. Don't know what they're going to do with that, but it's going to be batshit crazy. Obviously, we had Friday the 13th. There's talks of a new Saw game. Obviously, it's later than the 80s, but the fact that horror games are coming out now is good to see again.
Oh yeah. I mean, I know that they would have been doing more Friday the 13th ones, but like, I don't know if you know or not, but there's a issue with copyright.
Yeah.
So nobody can make it official.
That's been long ongoing at this stage.
Yeah. Nobody knows when it's gonna happen.
Well,
I'm surprised. Like, Hellraiser had the same issue, didn't it? Clive Barker tried to fight to get it back.
Yeah.
And things like that. Like, it's strange when you see back in the 80s, like movie production companies buying rights and then obviously going out of business and they won't let people use it and stuff like that. It's crazy the way it's happening.
Yeah. Kate, before we go, which we were meant to be gone 10 minutes ago, but sorry, as I said, we like to talk,
Keep talking. I don't care.
Cool. Tell us, what have you any future projects lined up that you can talk about or you'd like to tell us about before we go?
Yeah, well, we are working on something right now that I can't really shed much light on.
Okay.
It's in the works, but there are a few things that have been made and they're in the post-production that are coming out soon before that's going to be done. And that's the information that you can also see on my IMDb. But
cool.
There's a film called They Watch that we're waiting for, and it's been in the making for a little while. But it's got amazing performances. It's great. The two main actors in it are Damien Maffei from Strangers Prey at Night, Haunt, Wrong Turn.
Awesome.
And Ashlyn Yenny, who was in Human Centipede.
Yeah.
And myself. So we're, and Thomas Parabeck as well. He plays the son. He is in Cobra Kai. He plays Little Johnny.
Oh.
So little blonde boy. Which is crazy because like when we were shooting, he had to match Ashlyn and Damien as his parents. So our makeup artist had to dye his hair. And it wasn't happening. It was like, I think it was like coming out green or something like that. And they just had to put like temporary color in it. So because the boy's hair is so blonde, both him and his brother, they're just like twins, but different age. And they're blonde, like blonde. And so she had to dye his hair like every day with like this temporary dye. Sold it. It was great. But so that movie is about it's about a vengeful spirit. Yours truly.
Lovely.
Yeah. I do have this crazy makeup on my face, so you're not gonna recognize me. But it's this vengeful spirit who haunts our main hero for certain reasons, which we're gonna find out when we watch the movie. And like I said, the performances are wonderful. I was there when they were doing it. It's a little bit on the dramatic side because there's also this family turmoil and they've been involved in the story that is very understandable for what happens in the movie. But anyway, so that one we're really looking forward to. And I've mentioned Dark Circles before.
Yeah.
It's about it. Let me tell you, the working title was, which I still really hope that we get it back. It was called The Events Surrounding a Peeping Tom.
Oh.
It used to be The Events Surrounding a Peeping Tom and the Horror That Followed. So that was the long one.
That's a bit more original, doesn't it?
Having a go at the longest title there.
Yeah. I'm like, this title is like a Panic at the Disco song. Like that's I don't know if you've ever seen like the names for Panic at the Disco songs from their first album, but they were like a paragraph. And like,
Jesus.
Oh my God. So this film had been in the works since I believe 2016. And the writer, Brian Fitzpatrick, and Damien Maffei, they've been trying to get it off the ground for this long, and finally we made it happen. Hannah Fierman directed it. Hannah is from VHS, Creep Show, Terror Trips. So
she directed it.
Yeah, she directed it.
Wow.
So yeah, that's gonna be fun to see once it's all done. But so it's about a guy, Martin Malone, who is kind of struggling with his little peeping addiction there. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to get better, but as we know,
it doesn't.
It doesn't. Or does it? I mean, it's a philosophical question. So so it might. There's also a little romantic undertone there. So we'll see. And we had a wonderful. So it's Damien Maffei, me, and Terry Kaiser starred in it as well.
Oh yeah.
Weekend at Bernie's. He's Bernie. So,
we
Terry,
actually had our own version of that come out in real life.
yeah. So yeah, he's really looking forward to it. He'll call and be like, "When is Dark Eyes coming out?" I'm like, "You mean Dark Circles?" He's like, yeah, Dark Circles. He's like, "So how's Dark Eyes doing?" Like, it's doing.
You definitely need the original title there, because he's just gonna keep getting confused.
Yeah, but Terry, we were very not hesitant, but we weren't very sure if Terry was going to join us for the film, because Terry is of a respectable age, and he's been in the industry for a long time, and he at first he was a little bit intimidated by the monologue that he also had, because he's got a lot of pages that he had to memorize and deliver and stuff like that. And thank goodness for his manager, I think, Dominic, who kind of encouraged him, and he was like, "You can do this, Terry, you can do this." And I'm very glad that he did, because he delivered some wonderful
Awesome.
He's given some great memories along 80s and 90s horror as well.
Yeah, we recently made him go to an event to watch Friday the 13th, part 7 that he was in.
I can't even remember. I've seen them all,
it's part 7. He was Bad News Cruise.
That's the one in New York, isn't it? Is 7 the one in New York?
I don't know. I think it is, isn't it? I don't know. They're all the same to me, those Friday the 13th.
I didn't see it.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Apart from the first one.
Yeah.
Like, Terry, you have to, it's your movie, and you haven't seen your movie. He's like, no, I haven't. Because he's a little bit squeamish. He's not super into.
That's fair. That's fair.
But no, he's a great sport in that regard. That even though he's not a fan, but he'll do it. So
fair play. Well, look, Kate, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, and
thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep in touch with you, and you can tell us when release dates of those films, and we'll throw a bit of a light on them and review them and that kind of stuff, if that's cool with yourself. Like.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
You're welcome back.
No problem.
Anytime.
Absolutely.
I know finding people to talk horror with isn't as easy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you can always come back to me if you think of something to talk to me about.
Sounds like a plan. Well, for now, Greg, take us home. Get us out of here.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been your Friday night. It's not quite 12 o'clock yet, but it's getting close. So we're going to leave it there. And the way I always finish the show, the words of the great George A. Romero, ladies and gentlemen, stay scared.
Woo-hoo.
Happy Halloween.
Exactly.